There we go. All right. So I'm here with Reid, and we're going to be talking about Reid's unit plan. So Reid, the first question is, please discuss your unit plan.
All right, so my unit plan that I'm using is focusing on something that students in Algebra 2 really struggle with, which is graphing parabolas and the transformation of parabolas. And the biggest issue I've noticed is most of my students have taken Algebra 1 and then they have a whole year off with geometry, and then they jump back into Algebra 2. And that's one of the biggest issues. And then a lot of them struggle with shifting the graph horizontally left and right, because the equation to shift it to the right has a negative sign in there, while shifting it to the left has a positive sign. So it's counterintuitive. Originally, your students, they want to shift it to the left when it's negative and to the right when it's positive, because the x-axis is always positives to the right, negatives to the left.
Right.
And it's just counterintuitive and it screws them up. So I've had to address that in my lesson plans, and I've already done this lesson once, or twice actually. And for 75 to 80% of my students, they've got it and they're good. But the other 20% are still struggling. And that might be the case everywhere, no matter how it's presented. The other issue with this one, when I originally made the plan, was my objectives. They said that my objectives were too detailed and hard for students to understand. But one of the things that's not included in my objectives is that every day I go through the objective and I try to use larger words to try to help my students for SAT prep. Our school has a student learning outcome, or SLO is what they call it. And one of them for our math department is to prepare students for the SAT. So I try to use the very generic lingo that mathematicians would use, or people presenting these tests would use. So I'm kind of on the fence with that. So I changed my objectives to meet the revisions required, but at the same time, when I'm in the classroom, I don't just say, here's our objective, we're looking at characteristics of the transformations of quadratics. I do take 3 to 5 minutes and kind of say, okay, what do we think about this? Like, what do we think this actually means? And what are we actually looking at today? And then they wanted more detail within my formatives and my summatives, and I think that I just need to include my PowerPoints, because I use PowerPoints every day. I think that will help them see what I'm doing in class some more. Each day for this, it's a 3-day lesson, or a 3 or 4 day lesson, and each day in there, pretty much kids are hands-on with their groups using mini whiteboards to draw these parabolas and working through an inquiry process somewhat. The last day, we're finding how we can stretch the graph either skinnier or wider. And I kind of walk them through that example, because I had a horrible time with it when I was in school, and that's how my department, my coworkers in my cohort have done it at the school. So that's just how I took it, and my kids for the most part got it. They know how to find the value really quickly.
Nice.
So that was really, really good to see. And that was one of my lessons that I presented for my my observation about a month ago, and I got nothing but good feedback. So that was really nice to have.
Nice. Do you use any real world examples
I do.
when you do kind of stuff?
Yeah, I do. So like I try to make my examples as fun as possible, because I'm young, so my kids expect me to be fun anyway. And we started with a couple examples. Like one of them was a baseball is being thrown, or one of my teachers, her son played football at the school, so she put a picture of her son punting, and it was like, Garrett punted the ball 60 yards, and that was the exit ticket I used for that class period. But I also used like a skate park has like the bowl. I used that in this example. So I was like, imagine that we're below ground and we're looking at the skate park from the side, kind of like you would be at an aquarium with like the polar bears or the whales or whatever in the pool. and we look at it from the side, and it would be a parabola. So that was like that kind of way to get someone, because I have a couple kids who skateboard, and it kind of gets some other people involved, and people who ski or anything like that, it gets them involved. And then we did a review last week, and my kids struggled with it still. We played Jeopardy, and they were still struggling with it. And I did an example on my document camera, and I said, imagine I were to take my cat one day, and I was really mad at my cat, so I chucked my cat across the room into the couch, and my kids just start laughing and going crazy. And I've already drawn a picture of my cat before. It was this really crappy stick drawing. My kids loved it. So whenever I'm thinking of an example, I try to relate it to my cat or something going on in my life. So they see some real world applications, but I'm trying to give them more fun real world applications. One of the biggest ones that my kids hate fractions. So I always try to relate hate fractions with a burning passion. They have no clue what's going on. Why do I have to have two numbers here? They always want to write it as a decimal. And there's a girl in my class whose mom works as like an accountant for NASA. And I was like, NASA uses fractions. I said, if they use 9 decimals versus all 15, I said, that's the difference between the space shuttle blowing up in space or actually making it to the moon. And my kids haven't questioned me since then. So it's been it's been successful.
There you go. That's a nice STEM tie-in right there.
Yeah. So they like that example. As far as my unit plan, I think I'm just going through all the steps and trying to make all these revisions, because there's a lot of revisions to make. I did okay on my outline, but just adding more and more details and trying to tie up every loose end is where I'm at right now.
Okay, cool. So the next question is, do you have any interdisciplinary or UDL ideas that you need help with, or that you think are really good?
Yeah, I'm kind of lost on the UDL ideas, honestly. We've filled out those forms before, and I've been trying to like think about how I actually would use them in the classroom. And most of the time when I'm planning lessons, I don't really think of a UDL. Like I try to think of 10 or 15 different ways that I could, like directions that I could take my lesson, provided the class I'm in. Like, oh, well, if they struggle with this, then I can hop off right here for 10 minutes and cover this concept to make sure they got it and then jump back on. But as far as I feel like the UDL is so in depth, and it's a really great tool. But the amount of time that it takes to complete that UDL, like if I did a UDL for every single lesson, they would be perfect lessons, and I could cover every single thing that could possibly happen in that 90-minute class period.
Right.
But as far as doing that every day, that might be a 4-year project where I try to do, okay, this year I'm going to do a UDL for every other lesson or something like that, or every third lesson. It's a great tool. I think it'd be nice to have, but I feel like it covers so much in each lesson, especially in the math classroom, because there's so many different ways class can go. As far as like English is concerned, I feel like science in general, honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe less for bio, but I feel like any lesson with the UDL can go in any direction, which is a good thing and a bad thing.
So one thing that has helped me a lot with the UDLs and like kind of streamline the process, having I don't know how your classroom set up, but my classroom is set up in groups of 4, and being able to rearrange the class according to either the same skill level or mixed skill level to help. The mixed skill level is kind of more for the students helping each other work on stuff, and then the with similar skill levels is like an activity where I know the stronger kids are going to be able to do it on their own, but they're going to be maybe a couple tables that I need to spend some more time with, just to rather than bouncing through 4 tables, helping the weakest get at each table. So stuff like that can help a lot. And then just making sure that you have like access to things like, text to speech programs and stuff like that can also help with the UDL stuff as well.
On text to speech, I don't think I have any. I think I can get access to that, but I don't have any students who
Hmm.
have that as a accommodation in my classrooms.
Okay. Yeah.
And my school is not a one-to-one school. Like, is your
Hmm.
school one-to-one? I think you said every student has a laptop at your school.
Yes.
That makes life
Yeah.
so nice.
It does. Yeah.
And
Well, it's a
bad.
right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of managing fantasy football teams.
Oh my
Um, but some students can get. I know Google Goggles actually, like the app. You can actually take pictures of stuff and it will read it back to you. It actually works as a text to speech program,
God.
which
Oh
is pretty
wow,
cool.
that's awesome.
And I think Google Translate can do that too. So if the kid has a smartphone, and I'm
Yeah,
not saying every kid has a smartphone, but if the kid has a
yeah.
smartphone, they can use that. And then there was another. I can't remember what the other app was, but yeah, it's there's stuff that the kids can use even if they don't have a laptop. But I agree, having a laptop can make a huge difference.
Yeah, I
So,
keep saying, keep going through all these tech lessons, and I'm like, I'd love to use some of these tools, but either my students aren't mature enough, or they don't have
mhm,
that access. And it's like
mhm,
I'm between a rock and a hard place, really. I either take them to the
right,
computer lab
right,
and it goes amazing, or it goes awful. My kids don't do any work, which
right.
is my fear. Um, but I do use the groups of four seating, like you mentioned. I have groups of four. I have one group of five because we had 33 kids in a class, and I needed a fifth seat.
How many kids in the class?
There, at the beginning of the school year, I had 33 in a class of Algebra 1, ninth graders.
Wow.
That class is now down to 30 because of students leaving the school, withdrawing,
Mhm.
whatever's going on, but it's still a big class.
Wow.
Um, yeah.
And do you co-teach that?
I co-teach. I have a para educator with me in that class.
Oh,
So
nice.
she's
Okay.
mostly because it's an inclusion algebra one class, so mostly she's there for helping the special education students. But sometimes because she knows the content so well, and she's actually getting certified right now too as well.
Hmm.
Me and her will split the classroom. So we've got a chalkboard on one side, a whiteboard on the other side, and then on the main board I have an interactive whiteboard. We'll
Hmm.
split the
Oh,
classroom
nice.
in half, have the problem on the interactive whiteboard, and then we'll come back together and show the answers that the two groups got on the interactive whiteboard. So sometimes we can kind of split it up and take that huge class and try to manage the volume a little bit. That's my biggest
Yeah.
class. So they've been so loud. They're
Yeah.
all freshmen, but
That's a lot of kids.
it's a learning process.
Wow. Okay, so my last question is actually kind of related to that, and that's share your classroom management ideas, especially since I wrote this on your discussion board already, but
Yeah,
I'm really interested in your classroom management because of things like with the Baltimore County policies with attendance and making
yeah,
sure the kids do homework. So like
yeah.
how do you deal with that stuff?
It's been a learning process, especially as a new teacher. The benefit that I have is that I haven't been teaching, so I didn't have to shift from the grading policy.
Hmm.
So the grading policy is new, but it's new for me. So it doesn't really. I'm not used to the old policy anyway. As a teacher, at least, as a student I was, but as a teacher I'm not. But it's really difficult, and I think at the end of the school year, they're gonna they've already made changes. They've already made updates to it. So now I can make homework graded, but
Oh, cool.
only if the homework has been covered in class and the students have had opportunities for feedback, like formative assessments and things like that. So I always include those every day. I always go through mini whiteboard activities. Um, each
Hmm.
group comes up with an answer. I check the answers and then I say, here's what you did right. Here's what you're doing wrong. And go through have one person put the example up on the board. And the whole time I'm screaming, put it in your notes, put it in your notes, put it in your notes. And the majority of the kids don't. And they
Hmm.
wonder why they have a 55% when the lowest percentage they can get to 50. So they're doing 5% work, pretty much.
Wow.
But it's very difficult. I can't imagine um, doing this for my entire career. Um, I really can't. But the classroom management is difficult. I started with a progressive discipline system of strike one, strike two, strike three. But in any
Mhm.
given class, I'd have 3 strikes for 10 kids. And I can't, and that's only one class. I've got 3 classes a day. One of them's an honors group. So really I have 2 classes a day where I could
Mhm.
call anywhere from 5 to 10 parents per class. I can't call 20 parents a day on a bad day. I just don't have that kind of resource. So
Right.
I've been trying to fight my battles and pick my battles. So on any given day, a kid will get overlooked and won't get a call home, even though I told them they have 3 strikes. So some of them have gotten to the point where they just don't even listen anymore. So I've just given up on that system, and now I'm doing a simple. I just write their name down. I don't even tell them, and I call home, and then they come in like, Mr. Fox, why'd you call my parents? Because you're being an idiot. Like you're standing up, you're running around the class, screaming F this, F that. Like the curse words are unreal in my class. I don't know how it is in your
Mhm.
high school, but when I was in
What grade is it?
ninth and 10th grade,
Yeah, no, that's yeah. It's a
but like
little different.
when I was in school, like you saw an adult, you didn't curse to them, and like maybe it's
Mhm.
partly the parents, maybe it's partly the culture now. But I mean, I was in high school 5 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. Um,
Right.
but I found this way of doing classroom management that one of the case managers, she's also a para educator. She has a special education background. She used at the middle school level, and she writes every student's name down on like a little tongue depressor or a popsicle stick, and she just has her bucket. And then at the end of class, she pulls out 2 or 3 names randomly,
Hmm.
and she says, "Do we think Johnny was on task today?" And the kids will say yes or no. And if all those kids are on task, all 2 or 3, which out of a class of 30 is 10%,
Right.
then everyone gets candy. And
Nice. So
the
it's like
kid
positive reinforcement and it's
positive
peer
reinforcement.
reinforcement.
And it's
Yeah.
peer, and it's like, and the kids are telling me whether they did it or not. And I asked her, I was like, well, I feel like the kids in general would say they did. They like, yeah, of course they were doing work because they want the candy. But she said, like, no, like sometimes the kids will call kids out, and I was like, wow, that'd be awesome. So I've started to use that in the last couple of classes, and it's been a little better. Um,
That's cool.
and now it's to the point where like kids who don't do it get like beefed on and made fun of, and like, hey, like get your crap together. Like, come on, I want candy. Don't ruin it for the rest of us. So kids are getting to the point where in like the next week or two, I'm hoping that they're getting to the point where they don't want to let their classmates down, so they start paying attention, even if it's just because of the fear of their name being pulled out of a popsicle stick. At least they don't
Right.
want to do it then. I also started doing table leaders. So I said each table, I said you're in charge of making sure that this table's quiet when I ask for silence, when I ask to regroup. So when I'm done an activity, I'll do like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That was very helpful last class as well. I don't know why, counting down from 5. Maybe it's because of all the bombings and threats in the world around the last 10 years. I don't
Okay.
know. It's kind of sad, but I don't know. But as soon as they hear counting down, they get excited. Um, and then if they're still talking after that, I just say table leaders, it's on you. And at the end of class, they were better. They weren't where I want them to be, but it's been a step in the right direction after how the last couple of weeks have been.
Nice.
Um,
Those are actually really good strategies.
um,
Um, yeah,
it's
my
not.
biggest class is 17 kids, and they're pretty good.
Yeah,
So
I have 2 small classes, and they're pretty easy because there's half as many kids. Like,
right.
and my one class of 15, they're like heaven sends. Like they're all doing like 99.9% of the time, they're all doing their work. They're all taking notes, and it shows because the class average is like an 84,
Hmm.
whereas the rest of my classes are averaging anywhere from a 70 to an 80 or 70 to a 75. Like they're way off
Well,
the charts.
yeah.
Um, the classroom management, I just keep emailing parents, and part of the problem is either the email doesn't get to the parent. I try to call, the phone line's disconnected. I send it to an administrator, and there's like no way to call that parent. So they have to send in like a PPW officer, which is like a social worker, who makes sure the kid like comes to school and they have a contact for the parent. So like Catonsville
Right.
High School is kind of split. where half of the kids live right by Howard County, really good families, really good jobs, and the other half of the school is kids who could possibly be from the foster home a mile from the school. So they walk from the foster home every day. They could have
that was my second due on the ambulance I used to work on, so I know those
yeah,
areas really well.
yeah.
Yeah,
So that used to be that's another. I have 7 or 8 kids out of my 140 kids who come from
yeah,
the children's home, and
right.
it's really
Yeah,
hard to try to motivate a kid or to teach them to value an education when they have
mhm,
no one to be that voice for me at home. Most of my
right,
honors kids get like, bam, 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 do your homework every day. A lot of these other kids, they don't see a value in education because their parents didn't see a value in education because they didn't get the job they wanted. Or they didn't end up doing what they love to do. And it's hard. It's near impossible, honestly. At this point, I've realized it's almost near impossible to
yeah,
truly motivate some of those kids. And it's sad.
yeah,
It's sad because I have kids in there who are bright. They just don't do the work. And my department chair is like, it's going to be what it's going to be. Like, and he's like, you care too much right now. He said, you're a new teacher. You care too much. And I'm like, I hope that I never lose my caring of too much. Like, as a teacher, I feel like that should be a terrible thing.
right.
Um, that's where I'm at with that. It's going to be what it's going to be, but it's disheartening at times.
Awesome. Well, I think those are all the questions. So I think I
Yeah.
think you covered all your bases. All
Yeah.
right. So
Perfect.
let's. I'm gonna stop the broadcast here.
All right.